Well, for all of you, just to introduce Michael Scott Jolley, who goes by Scott. So he got his degree in accounting and business. I'll just kind of just briefly go through your little bio here that you sent me. Says you're married to a wild woman. I don't think I'll get into that. I don't know if you explain any more about that later, but we'll just leave it at that. But you believe in the 5 Ps. Prior planning prevents poor performance. Correct preparation and execution of fundamentals and systems will lead to greater achievement. And I think that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, is having the correct mindset. You know, we have a little bit of a changing business right now. We're going to discuss how we perhaps pivot in this kind of market. But you've been able to help many people in their business, and your experience includes over 2 decades of lending with private and public, commercial and residential real estate, community and economic business development, business and veteran benefit advocacy, lobbying, and coaching top real estate professionals that you've done all over the country. So you are a Tom Ferry coach. I don't know how long you've been doing that, but I'm sure you'll talk briefly about that as well. But I'll just turn the time over to you. I know you bring a lot of vast experience in coaching, and all of us are here to learn from you. So we'll turn it over to you, Scott.
Well, Todd, I appreciate you. Thank you. And I'm super grateful to your dad. A lot of folks on the call probably don't know your dad at this point, some of them maybe, but your family's been awesome for me in the development of my real estate career and in the sell side. So thank you for that. Can everybody, if you can't hear me, flag something in the chat. If you're not familiar with Zoom, you can mute yourself on the bottom left, but there's a chat function. You can also throw questions in there if you want, but I'd like to roll through a bunch of material, and some of it will go really fast, some of it will go a little slower, and then loop back for questions at the end if you have questions. So I will talk a little bit about coaching more towards the end as we talk about why it's important to have mentors and different people in our life that we do business with, or that we benchmark with and that we learn from. And I've pivoted a little bit in this, and we're going to talk mindset. We're going to talk some details there and some things on strategy and how to better run a business or build or develop your business. Talk a little bit about what's changing in the market. And then I've added some slides that I took from a company that I enjoy learning from, and they resonate with my mindset and way of thinking. So keep in mind that everything that I present, you can completely disagree with. It's not going to make offense to me. We all see the market doing things, and we have different past and business experience. And so I'm going to give you this, and it's really going to be more from the mindset of how I live and how I view business. So I'm going to share screen, and then we can roll through some of this. Like I said, if you have questions that come up, please just throw them in the chat. I won't see it while I'm sharing screen. I don't know which is the best way to say that, but happy to be here, happy to give you the information. So I have a team based in Cedar. We're more of what Tom Ferry would call a SEAL team. We're a smaller team, a little bit more focused on the relationship. If those of you that don't know, when I say Tom Ferry, I coach for Tom. Again, I'll touch on that a little later. There's lots of coaches in the marketplace, right? And there's lots of people who are willing to mentor and help you grow. So he's the one that, again, resonated with me in the way that I think and more of my mindset. So when we roll into this, maybe. Okay. All right. So it took a minute for my clicker to catch up. I opened with this, and I did when I did some in-person training here at the office in Cedar, because I think it's important that in everything that we talk about, that we all recognize and realize that doing it and being done versus perfect. Done is better than perfect, but there's a difference between being perfect at something and being an expert in something. Experts can still make mistakes. It's that we're learning and growing and building. We don't need to be perfect. And if we don't take action because we're waiting for perfection, we're going to wait a long time for that to come. So that's why I start with that. Why I want you to think, and again, if we were in a really small group, we could have this conversation with as many people as are here today. I want you to more think and reflect. But why is it that you got into real estate? What was it that created that? Was it Was it the barriers to entry being low and it was just something you wanted to do? Was it a family business? Was it that you really love sales? Was it that you love people? What really drove you into real estate? Because in all of the years that I've worked with people, I've learned one thing: none of us are motivated by the money. We're not motivated by money. We're motivated by what money gives us, or the leverage or the tool that it becomes for what we want most, whether that's investments, time with family, freedom, the ability to choose our own schedule, whatever it is. That's what motivates us. And so with that, we need to recognize that business is numbers. That's all business is. It's a numbers game. That's easy for a guy like me to say when I've got some background in accounting. If you struggle with numbers and you want it to just be relationships, you're going to disagree with me here. So let me break this down for you when I say business is numbers, because I truly believe that business is relationships, but it starts with our numbers, and the basis of business is numbers. So asking yourself these questions, right? And you can see that I've thrown some quotes in different places. I'm not going to do the death by PowerPoint and just read everything. I'm going to talk more about what it means, but these questions are important to me, to the people that I coach, to the team that I work with, to the people within the Fathom family, because I want you to all be as successful as you can possibly be. Do you run from a plan? Do you build a business plan? When do you build that? Do you build that on January 15th, or do you build that in October for the following calendar year? Do you have a strategic plan? And when I say strategic plan, I'm talking more of the execution of the business plan, broken out into a 90-day or a quarterly type cycle, so that you're looking at the business plan and you're analyzing it. I know a lot of business people that do a business plan in January and it goes on the shelf, and the next January they create another one. Don't waste your time. If you're going to have a business plan, have a plan that you're going to operate from, create a strategic plan, and execute upon whatever it is you're going to do. These three questions right here will separate the top 10%, 15% of real estate professionals versus the rest. Do you run from a plan? Do you have a strategic plan? And then the third one is, what are you following in that strategic plan? Do you have a follow-up schedule? Do you have a structure? Do you have systems? Do you run a CRM? Fathom provides us a CRM, right? IntelliAgent, it just gives it to you. It's all there if you just build it out. So whether you're using that one or you're using a third party that you're more comfortable with, are you running from that? Now, I will say, because we probably have younger agents and we have some very seasoned professionals here, checklists or systems don't have to be complicated. It's what's the system we're following, and what are we using, and how are we using it? It can be a checklist. It can be a daily, a weekly, monthly, annual. It can be simple, but it needs to be a system that you can systemize, that you can operationalize in your business and execute on. And we'll go more into execution as we go. So I'm going to burn through as we talk about what's ahead. These are some slides I pulled from Keeping Current Matters, KCM. KCM is a think tank that was created after 2007-8 crash or recession or housing crisis, whatever you want to call it. And really is more of a think tank to help provide information on where are we going and what's happening. And they do a lot of research. You can use Inman, you can use Realtor, anybody you want to use, doesn't matter, right? This is just the one that I personally find that resonates with the way that I think and analyze information. And so that's why I use them more than anybody else. So we're hearing this word a lot in the mainstream media right now. We're hearing the word recession a lot. And so I think it's important to talk about why there's an economic slowdown, or what that looks like versus what it maybe means to us in our businesses, or how we can pivot and become stronger, where we can lean in a little bit. But the word recession is funny to me, again, the way that I think, because I side with NBER. It's a significant slowdown or decline in economic activity that spreads over multiple months. Well, based on that definition, I would argue we've been in a recessive period for a lot longer than 3 weeks or a month or 6 weeks or last week when the media started using the word. Because we watched a significant decline in certain areas of the market during the COVID years, right? We watched a decline in materials and availability and production and manufacturing. Those are industries who were experiencing, based on NBER's definition, a decline. I believe it was stimulated by interest rates, which we can talk about as we get into interest rates as well a little bit. But again, this is just one definition of it. This Wall Street Journal article, I went back and looked at it just to confirm this morning. This was in June of this year, and it was 3/4 of the world's global CEOs, right? So big CEOs saying they believed would be in a recession. From June, they were predicting 12 to 18 months. We were a month and a half, 2 months later, is where we're at now. And they're saying, hey, we're now calling it what it is. It's a decline, right? It's not a crisis. Mortgage specialists, again, just talking about what we see in recessions and why they're not necessarily a bad thing for our industry. Yeah, they can make it a little more difficult, but they're not necessarily bad. We typically see an increase of interest rates, which we've seen, and then it's usually stimulated by a decrease that is how they're going to stimulate the economy to start moving again and see stuff goes. And so, as again, this is according to mortgage specialists, and this is their opinion, and I tend to agree with it, that we're seeing that increase. In fact, Brett and I were talking about it this morning here in the office, how the Fed increases rates, but interest rates on mortgages come down, and why that's so weird. I have my own opinion on it. But overall, we're seeing, as we move this and we run this gauntlet, if you will, we're going to see some increases in interest rates. We're going to see some decreases because they're going to have to stimulate the buyers back into the market at some point. So this is just to give you fundamentally, according to mortgage specialists, going back to their comment about how they're supporting, we see an uptick and then we see it decline to stimulate the economy. Some of you may have been in the industry. So the gray is going to be your recession. And then they're highlighting the section of the interest rates in yellow. This slide was prepared by KCM, so give them the credit. I didn't prepare this slide. I used it, which I have their permission to do as a subscriber. So 80s, right? I was a kid. I didn't live this as a buyer. Some of you may have been buying real estate and selling real estate in this time when we had these peaks and these valleys in these recessions. This one was more impactful because I was old enough to start to understand and have the conversation. This one, obviously, I was living in as an adult. So many of us that are in the industry were. If you got licensed in the last 2 years, you have already experienced this, but on a very small scale. There was about a 2-month window during COVID that they called a recession. Everything had declined for 2 consecutive months and they called it that. And now, obviously, this is in April of this year. So we're looking backward. And we're out further and we're seeing that they're calling it a recession, and we're seeing interest rates that are in that range, maybe dipping down just a little bit over here on this side. So again, it's not the sky is falling. It's not a crash. It's not time to freak out. It's time to pivot. It's time to become really good at what we do. And how do we grow? So if you're not a graph person and you're more of a chart or linear, here's the same thing, right? What we saw in where interest rates were and how long these durations of periods of time lasted. This one obviously being the longest. If you lived through that, I was on the lending side at that point. It was a difficult time, right? Most everybody that was in or did something in housing experienced this during that time, and it was hard. So when we look at the past 5 recessions and we look at mortgage rates, the average is a 1.8 percentage point difference between the peak and where it was when we came out, right? When we came through the recession. That being said, we just locked a VA loan on Friday at 4.75 because the Fed announced on Wednesday what they were going to do. And then we saw rates trend down for those couple of days. And that was what we were anticipating. And that's why we locked where we did. Which is great, right? Because if we're in that 5 to 5.5 range and we're going to go down 8, it'd be nice to be in that 4.2 range and have it kind of settle in there, because buyers can still afford at that point. They just have to adjust what they can afford. So again, Fortune's just saying, hey, this is the spread that we've seen as we've gone. I've used this graph before, so those of you that have been with me before have seen this. But here's what I find most interesting about this is our consumers will oftentimes say, hey, are we going to crash? Are we going to lose all of what we've made over the last handful of years in appreciation? The media is saying that we're, whatever the headline is, right? And I've got some headlines in here that I pulled that we'll blow through quickly. If we went down 19% during 2008, and the most affordable time in the last 50 years to buy a home was in 2012, because we came out with a whole bunch of foreclosures. Again, I've got some support there for you. We're not going to correct at this level. And my argument is that lending standards are strong enough that the people who have purchased since this time moving forward have had to qualify, which means they're not likely to just go and turn their keys over and say, hey, I'm walking away. There's still equity there. Even if we see correction or some softening in pricing because of demand, you're going to see it continue to move forward. So when we talk about inventory, you're all experiencing this. So if you're in Arizona, I'm familiar with like the Phoenix market, Idaho, really familiar with the Boise market. Colorado, I do a lot out in Denver and the Springs, not a ton in New Mexico, but everybody that I'm talking to in those markets where you likely are, you're seeing your offers on properties are going down, the offers over asking in certain price points, but overall declining, sales numbers are declining, and inventory is coming up. Makes sense for a recession. So Mark Fleming with First American, he's their chief economist in the nation. We're talking here, we're going to see the difference in inventory. It's going to come up because it's strictly tied to the supply and demand numbers, right? So if demand is dropping because interest rates are up and it's causing less affordability in the consumer, we're going to see inventory come up. If you've been licensed since 2020, since the beginning of 2020, you probably have a lot of panic and a lot of fear in the marketplace right now. Don't lean into your office, lean into the people, your peers at the offices that you're in, start to follow some professionals who have been around long enough to understand trends and what's going to come up and what's going to come down. Because what we're seeing is just a shift back to more of a normalized marketplace. Here's inventory as it was projected by NAR. Again, I'm going to blow through a lot of this. We can come back to it if you have questions on it, but I don't want to spend that massive amount of time here. Let me go back here really quick, just showing the actual new listings versus listings that are just sitting, right? Existing home sales declining. This, I think, again, if you were licensed less than 2 years, you got licensed during the most gangbuster performance that we've seen, according to NAR's economist Lawrence Yun. And we're looking at inventory numbers right now that we saw in 2019. So if you did not sell real estate in a normalized market, you probably are feeling some anxiety and some panic, thinking my muscle memory tells me because my parents or myself lived through 2007, that there should be fear attached to this. I'm arguing there should not be fear attached to it. There should be, how much do you really want to be in this business? Going back to my very first question, why did you come into the business? Did you come in because it was easy money? Or did you come in because you love the sales and the people and you wanted to build your own career in your own business? We're going to just blow again through here. I mean, 21%, we saw the numbers up. This was the forecast from realtor.com coming into 2022. They were forecasting, again, rates were still low, right? Rates started to jump back up in March. So coming into the year, it still looked like we were just going to keep on cranking. Then they've redone their forecast, saying here, we're going to see inventory actually come up quite a bit, and we're going to see it sit a little bit. So simplistically, you can look at it as you move forward. You're going to look at, you've got a decrease in pricing and not a depreciation though, right? We're seeing a decrease in the annualized house pricing growth, meaning we're not going to keep going at 20% a year, which is not sustainable anyhow. If we think that's sustainable, we're trying to lie to ourselves. It's just not sustainable to grow these massive percentages every year, year over year. So we get asked this question all the time. Again, this is KCM. I'm going to blow through this. 3 headlines that they pulled. I thought it was fascinating, right? Because these are some trusted think tanks. Motley Fool's a very trusted think tank. People dump a ton of money in there, right? So yeah, there's some truth in it, but at the same time, does it make sense to wait? My argument is it's not a depreciation. It's maybe more of a decline, right? It's more of an adjustment or a normalization. And the strategy is what's most critical. If you're going to buy a home right now with the hopes of riding the appreciation and flipping it, yeah, probably don't advise that buyer to do that, because you're likely not going to have 20% over the next 12 to 15, 18 months and flip it. If you're going to stay in that home for a decade, you're going to ride this next cycle and this next adjustment of interest rates. Probably a really good time, because you're not going to overpay and compete at the same level. And you're going to basically marry the home and date the rate. We're hearing a lot of that. The rates are going to continue to move. You can refinance. You're just going to have to be patient, and you need to be able to afford it now. Looking at the pricing index and what they're saying, I personally like the Zelman Group and CoreLogic. Those are the 2 that I like as far as numbers. I will point out that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac being the highest, since they're buying the majority of the loans, it is nice to see them forecasting at the highest. I used this slide, and Brett pointed out, and for those of you that are, since we're all in the Fathom family here, CoreLogic purchases their data from who? Fathom, right? So we have access to this and we can educate and be the expert. Going back to that very first slide, perfect versus expert. Be the expert for your clients, build the relationship, talk to them, help them understand what it means to be an expert. Performance, right? When we talk about performance and pricing, yeah, it's a recession. There's going to be a decline. We're going to have an adjustment. We're going to normalize. And then as interest rates create more buying opportunities, it's going to create more growth. So we're going to come down and then we're going to kind of come up and flatten out a little bit. For some reason, my clicker's not working. Dave Ramsey, I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. He's made statements that I absolutely don't agree with as it relates to real estate. And he's made some that make a lot of sense, right? Again, this one is going to be right on. We're going to have to help educate our sellers that supply and demand and buyers are going to move based on what interest rates do because of the affordability. Interest rates drop a point, people have 20% or 15% more buying power depending on their debt. It's going to spur more into each market. If it goes up, it's going to push more out. It's a supply and demand issue. I think this is important for us as professionals to understand as we're educating consumers and as we're providing a better experience for them as we're pivoting with the changing market. We're still below the averages. Or at the averages. So we're not generating enough new properties that you're going to have so much inventory that your pricing is going to collapse. So there's still a great opportunity as we move forward over the next couple of years to be helping people win at a high level and change their lives. Buying window. So our peak home buyers are right now in that Gen Z versus the millennial age group. Right? These are the people they're buying homes a little later. They're saving more money. They're creating more opportunity. I am going to point out, though, that I still believe personally that this two sections of this chart are a really great opportunity for us as Fathom agents to start to get more listings as long as we educate them on how to price correctly. These people are still in a downsize mindset. Their kids are all gone. The kids and grandkids aren't coming home as much. They're starting to have to deal with stairs and they don't like it because of age. They're going to look to downsize. They're going to look to go to our one levels. They're going to look to go into smaller homes. And so there's a great opportunity to get more listings here. I know we're talking on buyers at the moment with this slide, but I think there's a listing opportunity right there. Just we're again cranking through time wise. I want to make sure we have time at the end. So as far as slides, that's it from what I pulled from them. Let's go through some of the tactics that I have for you. Thoughts and affirmations. I'm a big believer that the way that we program and the way that we see the world determines what happens. I also believe that the way that we feel on the inside radiates to those around us. So pulling some data on thoughts and affirmations. Success Consciousness said that we have 60 to 80,000 subconscious thoughts every day. Newsweek is saying that we're 6 to 6,200 per day that are conscious thoughts, things that we're actually thinking about. And this is the fascinating number to me. Science Foundation says that we have 80% of the thoughts, 80% of those 60 to 80,000 thoughts that are negative, and 95% of those that are repetitive. The programming that we've received from whether it's social media, whether it's mainstream media, whether it's our own mindset around things, we have naturally been programmed in the US that the subconscious thought pattern is negative. We look for the worst scenario as opposed to where's the opportunities to win. And it's all of us, right? I deal with this as well. It's you're driving down the road and that thought creeps up and you're like, oh yeah, that would suck. We have to reprogram, right? We have to reprogram it. That number is fascinating to me when I look across the board at buyers, sellers, our peers, anybody in the marketplace, how much of what they're thinking is negative. 30 minutes before this meeting, seller that's closing on Friday, losing their minds on the phone with me, thinking it's all going to fall apart. I'm like, we're 3 days out. I think we're going to be okay. Right. But it's that negative programming that creates that fear and it drives that fear. So thoughts are a big deal in my mind. Again, how we feel internally is going to radiate. If we're commission breathed or we're stressed out or we're freaking out about the market, we're going to radiate that and we're not going to create certainty. We're going to create more uncertainty. And we're going to support the uncertainty that the fear in the marketplace is creating, meaning I'm selling a headline, right? I want you to subscribe to my article or I want to be able to sell more ads. So 5 questions that you can either screenshot it. I'm happy to provide the slides to Todd. He can send them out, whatever. Self-belief, right? Having a healthy body. Am I doing something each day? And this ties into one of the other topics we're going to hit on. Am I assertive? Am I willing to state where I'm at in the situation and be confident and own it? Right? Do I have the right success mindset as I talk to myself? Do I see myself as filled with light and love and peace and of service to others? Right? And then I threw this little image in there from Lisa. Careful how you're talking to yourself, because you are listening. We talk about don't get inside your head. If you're in your head, you're dead, or if it's a scary place to be, right? I use the analogy a lot with the people that I coach about the drunk monkey. Is the cage unlocked? Do we leave the drunk monkey to just run around, or do we lock the drunk monkey in the cage and let it be in its place and keep it there, right? You're listening to yourself the way you're talking to yourself. I will comment right here before we go into morning routines that I believe that the morning routine, I believe for me personally that the morning routine that I have and that I choose to follow has been 100%. I can attribute 100% of the focus and the business acumen of learning and growing and becoming more 100% to my morning routine. It also starts with an evening routine. If you stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning playing video games or binging Netflix, it's hard to get up early in the morning and have a morning routine. Not going to tell you what time you need to get up, not going to tell you exactly what to do, but these are the 4 components that I feel like for me have gotten me there. And if you want to model them and use them, feel free, but it's going to be, you have to decide where you're going to lean in. You have to decide again, why are you in this business, and what are you willing to do while the market shifts around you so that you can level up and be your best self. So I think you got to do something physical. You can jump out of bed and do push-ups, you jumping jacks, go to the gym, whatever it is for you, right? Go on a walk, just do something to get your blood flowing. Do something for your mind. You need to learn something every day, every morning as you start the day. Learn something. Doesn't matter who you listen to. If you like them and you resonate with them and you're listening to them, awesome. You got to have something for the soul, right? Some people like to pray and that's where they recenter. Great. If you're a praying person, pray. If you're not and you want to meditate or you want to have quiet reflection, whatever's going to help you realign your core with where you're going and what your belief system is and what you're doing, realign your core, right? Every morning, you've got to do it. There's too much other stuff trying to feed you the noise. If you can realign your core, then you're great. And I believe that the 4th one is the glue that's going to pull them all together and hold everything together in your life through your day, through your effectiveness, through your execution. And that's the gratitude and the positive affirmations, the way that we talk to ourselves. And gratitude's not just, hey, I'm really grateful for my wife. It's getting deep as to why I say I'm married to a wild woman, right? Todd mentioned that earlier. I truly believe that if we can get deep and we can go deep into what we're really grateful for, we solidify the other things and it puts us in the right mindset to conquer the day. So when we talk about mindset, do we have a fixed or a scarcity type mindset? Do we have a growth and an abundance type mindset? What is it that we have? Sorry. My bad. All right. So growth or fixed mindset. Truth, the first thing. What do I believe to be true? That's the very first question in a growth mindset that we should be asking ourselves. What do I believe to be true? Very first question. Write it down, come back and get it off the recording, whatever. That's the very first question. Where is truth to me? What do I believe to be true? Question 2. What am I worth? I heard the definition that worth is different than worthy of. And I like that. We all have great worth in what we do. Any person we help for the better, we've helped for the better. We have great worth. So what am I worth, right? What is my worth in my mindset? So what do I believe to be true? Business, soul, core, family, enjoyment. What do I believe to be true? What do I believe that I'm worth? Question 2. Question 3, what do I truly believe that I'm capable of? And if you can start to really reflect on what the capacity is, you can really grow into or develop a stronger growth mindset. I believe that we all have the same potential. I don't think any human on the earth, this is just, again, according to Scott, I don't think any human on the earth has a different potential than someone else. I think we all have the same potential. We can all achieve the same thing. The question is what do we do to hit the capacity? And that's where we're different. We each have a different capacity. Either we've learned, we've experienced, we've grown, we've had more years, life experience, challenges, whatever it is that's expanded, or we've allowed to decrease the capacity in which we work with it. So I believe, again, all of us have the same potential. What are you capable of? Where can you push? Where can you grow? Where can you lean in? What are you capable of? Okay. So those, and I pause here a little longer because I really want to make sure we hit those 3 questions that we understand as we move forward. Above all else, if we can develop a growth mindset and realize that there is an abundance of opportunity. And I don't mean there's just an abundance of new listings. There's an abundance of opportunities to do new things, to pivot, to change, to become what you want to be and accomplish that goal. So again, you can go back and reflect on, what am I doing? What am I not doing? Am I looking for the approval of other people? I really like that we can reflect every day on what we failed and learned. I have a motto, and I use it with my 3 boys. I use it in my business. I love failure. I truly believe that failure, embedded in failure, is the formula for success. I truly believe that. We need to fail forward. And if we're learning and we're growing and we're trying and we're pushing and we're driving forward and we fail, we learn. I really truly believe that. And so I hope that you'll do that. I also hope that, as what 6 says, that you'll start to use the word yet. I see this a lot. Hey, I didn't follow my schedule, so I'm just not going to follow my schedule the rest of the week. No, you didn't follow your schedule the way you wanted to yet. What's the next step? What's the next piece? Grow to where you want to be so that you can get to where you want to be. News. We talked about news. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here. Headlines are terrifying. They do not clarify anything. In fact, if you read the article, it probably goes the other way from the headline. Anyhow. So let's talk sales strategies. I've got some different strategies, and these are all accessible to you on Google. All I did was Google stats, strategies, some data points, and this is what I got. So I will point out, follow up, follow up, follow up. And I believe that all of the money in this business is in the follow-up. If you want to make a lot of money, become a master of follow-up. So Revit Group, again, I'm giving them credit. I just Googled it. I pulled their 21, I put them in here, and I'm just highlighting the ones that I like the most. 92% of our customers, and let me disclose for you, this is all sales. This is not just real estate sales. This is all salespeople, all sales positions. Okay. So 92% of our consumers are going to have their interaction with us over the phone, first and foremost. 30 to 50% of the sales are going to go to whichever vendor or person, or in our case, agent or team, responds to them first. So this goes back to the speed to lead thing. If you're buying a bunch of leads and you're spending thousands of dollars a month speed to leads, and you're not paying attention, we need to make sure that you're responding when those come in. 80% of your sales are going to require 5 follow-up calls, and 44% of reps give up after 1. So I buy a lead, I spend X number of dollars on that lead. It could be 7, it could be 200. And I take that lead and I call it one time, and then it just goes in the CRM. Well, I spent money on it and then I didn't call it. Call your leads, work the follow-up. Okay. Let's go down here to 11. Email is still a very effective form of communicating with people. It's 40 times more effective and better at acquiring a new customer than your ads you're running on Facebook and Twitter. Not saying you shouldn't do those, but it's more effective. Salespeople that are actively asking and seeking referrals are going to earn 4 to 5 times those that do not actively seek and ask for referrals. And this is the stat that on the referral side of it is most staggering to me, that 91% of our customers said that they would give a referral to their salesperson, but only 11% of those salespeople asked for it. I'm not talking about, hey, the best compliment you can give me is a referral at the closing table or on your business card. I'm talking about actively asking for referrals from the very beginning, from the consultation meeting. Once we get you the home that you love, I want you to share this with everybody you know. I want to work with everybody you know. I want to make sure that anybody who's frustrated in real estate, that you introduce them to me. It's the entire process of the relationship. It's not at the closing table. Hey, send me the people you know that need to buy real estate. This is not the right time. Do it from the beginning. 13% of customers believe that we as salespeople, or salespeople in general, understand their needs. That to me is a scary number because it means we're not learning enough and we're not meeting the customer where they're at. We're trying to help them come to where we're at. We need to be meeting them where they're at. 55% of these people are, 55% of all salespeople that are making a full-time living, which is me, 55% of us, we don't have the right skills to be successful, which I would argue is why people like Todd and others are putting together trainings like this to say, hey, let's talk about, let's learn about what do we need to be doing? Where can we pivot? What can we do? How do we implement a good mindset? How do we implement a morning routine that's going to help us become powerful? How do we execute? How do we follow up? Where do we grow? So there's a lot of opportunities there. I think this is important for any of you that are running a team. Oftentimes I see people hire team members and they're quick to hire and they're really slow to fire. And I think it should be opposite of that. I think you should be really slow to hire to your team and you should be really quick to terminate if it's not the right fit. But you also have to understand that for new salespeople, it's going to take them 10 or more months to even get to full productivity. So if you're thinking you're going to bring and onboard somebody and in 3 months, you're going to have made 100 grand off of them, you're going to be sorely disappointed by just taking the wrong approach and setting it up for failure. Just realize it's going to take time. And if you can't invest 12 months in that person, don't hire them. If you can build them up into what you want to help them become, then it makes sense. And I've given you a lot of stats. And so that's why I highlighted 21, because only 63% of you guys on here right now are going to remember the stories we talk about. And only 5% of you are actually going to remember the numbers that we've shared or that I've shared and gone through. Okay. So I want to talk about really quickly and then open up for questions. I want to talk about who's your coach, who's your mentor, right? Now, I know who I like having there in that space. And we'll talk a little bit about coaching. Again, I'm not trying to sales pitch you. Okay. Let's be clear. But I do believe that if you don't have mentors or coaches, or maybe coach isn't the word you like, but somebody who is your sounding board that you view as an expert that can help you break down and analyze what you're doing to get better, that's who you should have. Somebody who creates an accountability or creates strategy with you. This is not a spouse. This is not a parent. This is not a best friend. Those people are not going to be honest with you. They're not going to say, hey, you're missing the boat. You're completely failing at executing because you're jumping over and jumping around and doing different things every day. They're not going to tell you that. You need somebody who you trust that is going to tell you that you need to do this. So Tim Grover, if you don't know Tim, Tim's a coach. Tim is, if you've read his book, you know who he's coached. He had the opportunity, I've met with Tim a couple of times. I've heard him speak a number of times. Tim originally coached Michael Jordan, and he was Michael Jordan's first personal coach. He coached Kobe, and they were very different, right? Both very successful, but he had to meet them where they were. They were very different in the sense of what they did and how they did it. Most recently, when I visited with him in March, was the last time I talked to him, so it's been a couple of months. He shared that Aaron Donald was somebody that he coached. And if you remember, if you're a football fan and you watch the Super Bowl, you remember that Aaron Donald pointed to his ring finger at the end of the game. And that was the signal that he and his coach had that put them into what I would argue is alter ego. If you haven't read Alter Ego, read it, just that's completely side note. But what is it that shifts us in? And that movement, that tap of the finger was what shifted him in and out of that alter ego to execute at a high level. I love what Tim said here. And he said this in a training. I don't know that I've ever read this. This is from my notes. He said, everybody is looking to go to next. We're always looking for the next thing, especially in real estate. We're looking for the next shiny penny. We're looking for the next, what's the next best CRM? What's the next best lead? Who's got the best conversion? We're always looking for next, and we're not even ready for it. We're not even close to ready for it because we haven't figured out how to master the concept and then master the application. And now we can go to mastering the execution of it. So if you're looking at your business and you're saying, I don't understand what Scott just said in concept and application, please do not try and go buy $10,000 worth of software and new leads this week, because you're just going to waste your money. Figure out what the concept is that you're trying to meet. Who are you for? What's the avatar? What do they look like? Now master the application. How do I meet them where they're at? How do I implement? Now I can go and execute on that, right? These don't have to be long-term things. You can master things pretty quickly, right? But figure out the concept and the application. we all want to jump to execution before we master the other two. And I don't care if it's a high school football program, or if you've been in this business 30 years, you at some point had to figure out the concept and the application before you figured out the execution, or you figured out the execution and realized how much easier it would be if you did it the right way the first time. And then you went back and reworked it and it got even better. Okay. Tim also had mentioned in that same meeting that it's not about time. I hear this all of the time. Probably I'll have 15 coaching sessions tomorrow and I'll probably hear it 15 times. I just didn't have time. It's not about time. It's about where your focus is. Am I scheduled? Am I running my business from the numbers? Am I meeting my clients where they're at? Am I delivering what they need at a high level and giving them the focus that they need? Am I entering into that alter ego? So it's about focus, right? Bring the focus. He said the bill that regret gives you is generational. And if you think about your own life, you see this, it's about who breaks the cycle. Someone in every generation is going to break the cycle. I'll share with you. I coach a gal in Iowa. I won't give you the city. It might make it too easy to look up, but I coach a gal there. I say a gal, she's probably 55 or 60. And in the time that we've worked together for the last couple of years, I've worked with her, and she always believed that making money was a bad thing because she grew up very, very poor. And when I say very, very poor, most of us here probably didn't grow up as poor. Maybe somebody did. I'd love to hear the story of success that comes out of that. But like, she didn't eat days on days after days after days, and then they'd finally get food. They were just extremely poor and didn't have much by way of resources. And so when we talk about generating money, we generate focus. It's taken a lot of reprogramming of the mindset. And this is why I put these two together and why I say it's generational and it's focus versus time. 3 weeks ago, she climbed on our call and she said, I don't have anything pending. I don't have anything coming in. I'm freaking out. I don't have enough money. We talked about mindset. We talked about her childhood on that call. And then we went to, and I said, here's your one challenge. It's going to be really hard for the week. All I want you to focus on is your morning routine. I want you to go back and realign your morning routine and focus on just that. And let's see what happens in your business. Well, she did 6 pendings in that week. I talked to her tomorrow. So in the last week, we had the same focus, but our goal now was to create enough pending revenue in her business that she would meet her end of year goal at the end of those closings. So in a 2-week span, she's going to have generated about $80,000 worth of GCI into her books if she hits that goal, at least pending. My point is that $80,000 was unrealistic to her in her mind. She's now proving to herself, and she's doing this generational interruption into this cycle. So whatever you're telling yourself, whatever the story is you're telling yourself about time or focus or the market, I want you to pattern interrupt right now. And if you need to text me, I'll give you my number on the last slide, but it's the password to the call today. You can text me and say, hey, I'm struggling and I need to pattern interrupt. We can have that conversation. Though it might be brief, you need to pattern interrupt and you need to say, what do I need to change to get to where I want to be? And then make it about that focus, right? I think of this because there's an experience I'll share with you, but Tim said, if you think that the price of winning is too high, wait until regret gives you the bill. And I look back to all of the times in college that I said, oh, I can't buy that fourplex. It's too expensive, right? That story I'm telling myself that it's too expensive. So the price for me to win at that point was too high. Not only would they be paid off and cash flowing like crazy right now, or I would have sold them and 10x'd my money or 5x'd my principal in it, right? If the price of winning is too high for you, don't wait for 20 years so that then you look back and you've got to deal with the regret of, man, I wish I would have, or I should have. Don't live in that world, right? And then I added this is in my own words, the money that you generate in your business, and I want you to know how I wrote money, is directly proportionate or indirect proportion to the value that you generate and create for other people. If you want to make more money, figure out how to create more value. If you want more listings, figure out how to create more value for sellers. If you want to compete at a higher level, figure out how to create value for you by creating value for the consumer on the buy side and or the other agent. There's a lot of deals happening right now because of relationships. Hey, I know this agent will perform. Their offer is not as great as this one, but this agent doesn't usually perform. So yeah, it's a great offer for you as a seller, but why don't you consider the agent that we're going to work with, because I know they're going to perform and they're going to complete. We're not going to get canceled on in 6 weeks. What's your relationship like within that group of people? And then I'm giving you my mission statement. Now, my coach being Tom Ferry and a mentor, and I love him. I'm excited to see him a couple of weeks at Success Summit. He asked us in March. I was in a group of, Tom has, I don't know, 250 coaches. I was there with 40, the top 40 coaches in Tom's organization. And he said, I'm going to invest in your company. However, you have to tell me what you do. And I'm 6 years old. And I thought, and he uses this in his venture capital side of his business. I thought, what would I tell a 6-year-old that I do? And this is what I came up with. This is what I do. I identify the broken or fragmented, your word, the broken puzzle pieces, and I align them into the masterpiece that they were meant to be. What do you do in your business? And I'm 6 years old. Text it to me. I'm fine with I don't know how many people are on here, Todd, maybe 100 by now, 150. I don't know. I don't care if I get that many texts today. I'll respond to y'all. What do you do that solves the problems for other people and creates value? And I'm 6 years old. I need to be able to understand it if I'm 6. What are you doing for your mindset? How are you creating that generational interruption into breaking the mold and becoming what you want to become? So mindset, morning routines. We've talked about sales strategies. We've talked about a lot of market data. Let's hit some questions. What do you have? Unmute yourself and just speak up and it'll highlight you. It'll pull you to the front of everybody's screen. Todd, we only went 50 minutes and I felt like I was talking pretty fast most of the time.
It looks like there's a question. Is there a question in the chat? How long have you been consistently doing a morning routine? And how long is this iteration?
I have been following that morning routine since I started coaching for Tom 4 years ago. Made all the difference in my world. Now, I will tell you that on a business day, and I'm not saying you can't sleep in, right? But on a business day, when I've rolled into town on a Sunday night at 1 o'clock in the morning or coming back from vacation, the very hardest morning routine are those days. It's hard to wake up at 4:45. Here's the reality. Put a glass of water next to your bed, set an alarm somewhere that forces you to get up out of bed, get your phone in the bathroom, get it away from your head. Studies have shown that if your phone is within 3 feet or 1 meter, your brain never disconnects from it. If it's powered on and 3 feet away, your brain stays connected to your phone all night. You're not sleeping. You're thinking about work. So figure out how to separate the things that are the distractions or that are the business, and then focus in on what you need to do to rest, to rejuvenate, and to build. Am I perfect at my morning routine? No, but I win that morning routine more than I ever lose it. And if you figure out what works for you, I'm not saying you got to get up at 4:45 in the morning and get to the gym and go through affirmations and do all that. That just is what works for me. I coach a gal who said to me one day, she said, Scott, I will never wake up before 7 o'clock in the morning. I said, fine, get up at 7 and do your morning routine. But if you're showing up at the office at 10, you are way too late. You've missed the day. So your morning routine needs to get super focused, super concise. She leaned into her morning routine. When she came into my coaching schedule, she had $6,000 in the bank. She said, I'm freaking out. I just committed 100% of what I have to my coaching. And I said, awesome. And she runs a team of 5 now. We've been together 3 years. She runs a team of 5. She last July, I think it was, made $180,000 in the month of July. She's in a market that's similar to probably a lot of your markets, average price point between $350 and $400. Still a good month, right? That month was her second best year ever in that month. So it all went back to her morning routine, right? She found what worked for her, and then she leaned into it to get to where she wanted to be. Let me go in here. Ben's asked a couple other questions. Let me look in here. Do you see the chat that I have open on my share screen, or do you just see my last slide?
I clicked on the chat. That's why I see.
Okay. Okay.
So do you see the other questions? Looks like,
Money, skills.
do you have a
coaching.
daily agent task checklist? If we go up to the top underneath.
Yeah, so
the
what am I
first question,
missing here?
Scroll down. So 1049, it just says iPad. Whoever's on an iPad asked the question.
Yeah.
Scott,
Template to
Sally
work off
Carter's
of.
asking to put up your morning routine slide again. And then there's a great question here from Dan and Vivian Coons. Breaking patterns is the hardest part of moving forward. I've been in the business for 18 years. I was surprised to see I was number 3 in transactions in my brokerage. I know I'm not performing at my best, but I keep finding a block wall emotionally.
Yeah. So
Fix
we
it,
recognize that there's an opportunity to grow, but we're blocking, right? And so this goes back to the story that we're telling ourselves. And we all have a story. Every one of us has a story. We have a story as to why we can do certain things and why we can't do certain things. And you have to determine, is the story that I'm telling myself true? Or is it not true? Or is it partially true? And this goes back to that mindset component. So the way that we interrupt that, one, I would say get a coach and tell the coach up front what you want and just be transparent. I think that's the most valuable thing to me. I would rather somebody climb on a call and say, hey, I'm 100% hitting an emotional block. I'm 100%, I'm doing well in my business, but I feel like I'm just sucking in my personal life or in my mindset. I'd rather them come into the call and completely interrupt our 30 minutes with that, and then we just pivot and figure it out, than to go through the 30 minutes and then end the call and not have addressed it, right? So for you, if you're saying, hey, I know I'm not performing at my best, but I'm still successful. Everybody around me sees this success, but I know I'm not performing. I'm hitting this block wall emotionally. Let's go into the strategy behind what the story is that you're telling yourself. Let's go in and figure out, where can we pattern interrupt and where can we hit that and break it down to what's true and what's not. Likely this could be something from programming when you were little, right? I've found myself saying to my boys, no, we don't have enough money for that. And my oldest, who's 16, will say, he's learned to ask the questions. He'll say, well, Dad, is that your mindset because of how grandma always said there was no money? Or is that we really don't have the money for it? Well, no, we have the money for it. It's that I don't want to allocate it to that. Well, I'm glad he's asking me the question. He's pattern interrupting me, right? I want him to do that, because if he's pattern interrupting me, hopefully he's pattern interrupting himself. And that's just because I program them through coaching. I dump all this crap on them all the time. I talk about mindset and leadership all the time. So they probably hate it, but we need to figure out, what's the pattern interrupt that's blocking the emotional side there? What is it, and how do we address it, and how do we strategically work on it and grow you through it? Because if you feel like you're not performing your best and you're still performing well, there's a ton of opportunity if we can find the breakthrough and the interruption into that routine. I think somebody said, hey, how effective is routine versus coaching versus money? I didn't see the question. And as I scroll, I get myself lost in there. What are the other questions that I'm missing here, Brett or Todd?
Well, the question you're referring to says, how important do you think money skill is in coaching versus positive energy thoughts? For example, you're a real estate agent coach, but not necessarily $1 million producing real estate agent. I think you are, though.
Yeah. So I think,
Yeah, Scott, I'll tell you right now, Scott is, as far as volume goes, is #1 in our branch this year and last year volume.
well, and I appreciate you saying that. I think that the metrics that we look at are good. I think that there's a difference between, I run into this question. I'm editing, right? I run into this question because I've had people that have come into my coaching schedule and they say, well, I don't want to coach with you because you're not in my marketplace. Well, so I don't understand your market. Is that the concern, right? I don't understand the market versus I don't understand the business. And so I think sometimes there's an energy balance. I am not the most energetic coach, right? I'm not the rah, like, let's just talk about all the stuff, but I am very focused on, if you're not making money and you're not developing your skills, then your energy is going to suck anyhow, because you feel terrible about yourself, right? So if we can figure out how to get you to feel better so that radiates on the outside, then we can generate more energy and more excitement and more of that positive thought and that growth mindset, which we can generate more money. I can promise you there's people that I coach, Austin in Pennsylvania, Super good dude. We're in the process of building a team. He's young. He was a builder, and he decided that he didn't like the nature of that world. So he went into the sales side. Austin made, I don't know, 170,000, 180,000, 150,000 in the month of June. Our very first call this month, I talked to him 4 times a month. Our very first call in July, he was losing his mind, all sorts of just freaking out that everything was going to implode around him because he had 0 pending. Because he focused all of June on closing his deals. He didn't put any new stuff in the pipeline. And once he calmed down and realized that, hey, I made a ton of money last month and I still have a ton of money in my account, he understands the process. And so the story he was telling himself is, if you have 0 pending, you're going out of business. Well, that might be true. What's the strategy and what's happening before that that's feeding into it so that we can build and grow from there? I didn't make the same amount of money in June as Austin did. I made significantly less. That doesn't mean I can't coach him up to his greater capacity. Still had a great June, right? But I think it's more than, is the coach producing the same level as me? Are they doing the same? What's the coach giving me that's helping me get better and grow and become who I want to become? That's the key behind it. And are they helping me grow and become who I want to become in my life and in my business? I'm not a believer that there's a work-life balance. I used to say that, and I used to believe it years ago. I don't believe that anymore. I think right now I am not a balanced father because I'm with you guys, right? It's not time for me to be focused on my family. It's time for me to be focused here, which means my balance is here. That doesn't mean I'm out of balance when I'm at home, unless I was trying to be like on vacation right now and doing this. Now I'm out of balance in both because I'm not really focused on either. You have to figure out, where's balance for me? Where am I balanced in my business? Where am I balanced in my relationship, whether that's a partner or that's friends or that's roommate, whatever it is. Where am I balanced? Where am I balanced if I have children or if I don't? Am I balanced with my dog? Does my dog get neglected because I'm too focused on work? It's just about balance. It's about focus versus the time.
Awesome. I think we'll do one more question right here, and then I think our time's about up. But it said it's a 2-part question. It says, do you have a daily agent task checklist, like a template to work off of to get into a routine?
Yeah. So I use with those that I coach, I use the one that's in Tom's system. And so within the Tom Ferry organization, they have a whole system and checklist. I use that one. I'm happy to share that. I don't think that would be a problem to share a daily checklist. I think the key behind that is to figure out, if you're going to start operating from a checklist as a system, the daily is a great start. Please don't let it be the final. You need to go then have a weekly. What are the things I have to do every day? But what are the things I have to do every week, every month? Where am I doing my accounting? Where am I doing my book work? Where am I planning the next month? Where am I analyzing my incomes? I think I actually skipped the slide on revenue in the business numbers one. I think I just clicked through it too fast. But am I analyzing the numbers? What's my revenue? What's my cost? Where's my margins? Do I know my cost per client? Do I know my margin? Can I work backwards and say I have this profit margin per buyer or seller, or I have this cost per buyer and seller? If I can build that and I can put that into the checklist, then it's all of it. What's the checklist for when I bring a buyer in? What's the checklist for when I bring a seller in? Am I just using the required document fill in IntelliAgent, or do I have my own system for my team that says these are the things we have to do every single day or every single week or every single transaction? But yeah, there's lots of them there. I would say start here. If you don't have a routine, if you don't have a schedule that you follow, if you showed me your schedule on your phone and it was completely white, I want you to start here. Figure out when you're going to wake up, build your morning routine. Okay, those 4 things that are on the screen right now: exercise, mind, soul, gratitudes, and positive affirmations. And then I want you to put 30 minutes of study the market. And what I mean is what's coming in, what's going out, what's pending, what's happening in price reductions, what's happening with my listings, where's my buyers at, what's going on in the marketplace, my hyper local market. You can add on that if you want to do some national stuff, but go focus on what's the market doing right now. Every day, 30 minutes every day. And if you miss it, you're behind. You have to know the market. From there, I would say, don't look at your email till 11. So put it in your calendar. No email till 11 a.m. Habitually, agents come in at 9 or 10. They take 20 minutes to get their drinks set and their whatever set at their desk. And then they start looking at their email for an hour and a half. And then they go to lunch. And then after lunch, they come back and look at their email again. And then maybe they call some vendors or maybe some old leads. And then they go home. And you work about 2 hours of the day, but you're there 12. And you make about 80 to 100,000 a year. And you're like, I wish I could make more money. Okay, don't look at your email till 11. Then if you go to lunch, you don't go to lunch with agents in the office. You go to lunch with either your team for one-on-ones, or you go to lunch with a lender or a title company or an attorney, and you make them pay, by the way. But you go and you build those relationships, and then you come back and get into the follow-up and the appointments. So you should be prospecting between, if you're in the office at 9 and you're done studying the market at 9:30, you should be prospecting from 9:30 to 11, meaning opening new opportunities. Email from 11 to 12 and follow-up, and then lunch, and then preparation, right? That's just an easy daily schedule. If you have no schedule, just use that one. I promise you it will help. It'll at least be a start. If you're interested in coaching, call me. I'll help you get into the system if it's what's right for you. It's been awesome for me. It's been awesome to coach people because I get to do this every Tuesday and Thursday. So I get to sharpen my skills while I help others, and it just reaffirms why I do what I do.
Thank you again, everybody, for coming. Scott, we appreciate your time this morning. This was awesome. Thank you.